Unemployment has soared to 9%, a level not seen since the dark days of 2008, leaving millions of Americans struggling to make ends meet. Families are finding it increasingly difficult to cover basic necessities, such as food, housing, and healthcare. Adding to the pain is the relentless surge in inflation, which currently sits at a worryingly high 7.2%, eroding purchasing power and pushing the cost of living ever higher. Everyday items, from groceries to gasoline, have become significantly more expensive. Narrador principle. The roots of this economic crisis are deep and multifaceted. It's not just one single factor, but a combination of several issues that have converged to create this perfect storm. The trade war with China, initiated by the Trump administration and continued by subsequent administrations, has undoubtedly played a significant role. The tariffs and trade barriers have disrupted supply chains and increased costs for businesses. Tariffs imposed on Chinese goods, intended to protect American jobs and industries, have backfired, leading to higher prices for consumers and businesses alike. This has made it more difficult for American companies to compete globally. This has, in turn, dampened consumer spending and business investment, further slowing economic growth. Small businesses, in particular, have been hit hard, with many forced to close their doors. The energy crisis, triggered by geopolitical tensions and supply chain disruptions, has further exacerbated the situation. The cost of energy has skyrocketed, affecting everything from transportation to manufacturing. Soaring energy prices have added to the inflationary pressures, squeezing household budgets and increasing production costs for businesses. This has led to higher prices for goods and services across the board. The combined effect of these factors has created a perfect storm for the U.S. economy, leading to the current recession. The economic landscape is fraught with challenges that require comprehensive solutions. Narrator principle. The social and political ramifications of this economic downturn are profound. Communities are grappling with the fallout, and the political discourse has become increasingly polarized. The rising cost of living, coupled with stagnant wages and job losses, has fueled widespread discontent and social unrest. People are taking to the streets to voice their frustrations and demand change. The economic anxiety felt by millions of Americans is palpable, creating a sense of uncertainty and fear about the future. The road to recovery will be long and arduous, requiring concerted efforts from all sectors of society.
While the reasons behind this isolationist approach are complex, the impact is undeniable. A global supply chain already reeling from the pandemic and other geopolitical tensions is thrown further into disarray. Despite the self-imposed isolation, China has managed to maintain a respectable economic growth rate of 3.2% in 2024. This resilience can be attributed in part to the country's vast domestic market and its aggressive push for self-sufficiency. Narrator principle. China has been strategically investing in key sectors like technology and manufacturing, aiming to reduce its reliance on foreign powers for essential goods and services. This inward turn is partly fueled by the ongoing trade war with the US. The tit-for-tat tariffs imposed by both nations have forced China to seek alternative markets and strengthen its internal supply chains. However, this isolationist approach is not without its critics. Some argue that it will ultimately harm China's long-term economic prospects, limiting its access to global markets and innovation. The world watches China's transformation with a mix of apprehension and curiosity. Will this inward turn be a temporary measure, a strategic retreat to consolidate power before re-engaging with the world on its own terms? Or is it a harbinger of a new era, where China prioritizes self-reliance over global interdependence? Only time will tell. Time.
The economic turmoil engulfing the US and China is inextricably linked to the trade war that has raged between them for years. This conflict has not only affected the two largest economies in the world, but has also sent shockwaves through global markets, influencing trade policies and economic strategies worldwide. What began with tariffs on solar panels and washing machines escalated into a full-blown trade conflict, with both sides erecting towering walls of tariffs on billions of dollars worth of goods. These measures were intended to protect domestic industries, but ended up creating a complex web of economic repercussions.
This economic standoff, initiated during the Trump administration and continued by subsequent U.S. administrations, has had far-reaching consequences. the policies have been scrutinized and debated, with each administration attempting to navigate the turbulent waters of international trade. The initial justification for the trade war was to protect American jobs and industries from what was perceived as unfair Chinese trade practices. However, the reality of the situation has proven to be far more nuanced and challenging than initially anticipated. However, the reality has proven far more complex. Economists have pointed out that the interconnected nature of global supply chains means that tariffs can have unintended consequences, affecting industries and consumers in unexpected ways.
While some sectors may have benefited from the tariffs, many others, including manufacturers, farmers, and consumers, have borne the brunt of the economic fallout. The agricultural sector in particular has faced significant challenges, with many farmers struggling to find new markets for their products. Businesses reliant on Chinese imports have faced higher costs, forcing them to raise prices or absorb losses. Small businesses, which often operate on thin margins, have been particularly hard hit, leading to closures and layoffs.
The tariffs have also disrupted global supply chains, leading to shortages and delays. These disruptions have had a cascading effect, causing delays in production and distribution that have affected consumers and businesses alike. Companies that had come to rely on the efficiency and affordability of Chinese manufacturing have been forced to scramble for alternative suppliers, often at a higher cost. This shift has not only increased operational expenses, but also led to a re-evaluation of long-term business strategies. This disruption has rippled through the global economy, contributing to inflation and slowing economic growth. The uncertainty created by the trade war has made it difficult for businesses to plan for the future, further exacerbating economic instability.
The trade war has not only damaged economic ties between the US and China, but it has also sown seeds of mistrust and animosity. The long-term impact on diplomatic relations remains to be seen, but the immediate effects have been decidedly negative. The rhetoric surrounding the trade dispute has often been heated, further straining relations between the two superpowers. Political leaders and media outlets have frequently engaged in a war of words, complicating efforts to reach a resolution. This breakdown in communication and cooperation has made it increasingly difficult to find common ground and resolve the underlying trade issues. The path to a mutually beneficial agreement remains fraught with challenges, requiring careful negotiation and a willingness to compromise.
As if the global economic crisis wasn't enough, South Korea, a key player in the global technology and manufacturing sectors, is grappling with its own set of challenges. The nation, known for its rapid technological advancements and robust manufacturing industry, is now facing a multifaceted crisis that threatens to undermine its progress. The country is facing a severe leadership crisis, which threatens to destabilize its political landscape and spill over into the economic sphere. This crisis is not just a political issue, but one that has far-reaching economic implications, affecting investor confidence and market stability.
President Yoon Suk-yeol, elected on a platform of economic reform and a hardline stance against North Korea, has faced mounting criticism for his handling of the economy and his attempts to consolidate power. His policies, initially aimed at revitalizing the economy, have instead led to widespread discontent and protests. In a move that sent shockwaves through the nation, President Yoon attempted to impose martial law, citing concerns over national security and public order. This unprecedented step was seen by many as an overreach of executive power and a threat to democratic principles.
This drastic action was met with widespread condemnation, with opposition parties accusing him of attempting to stifle dissent and establish an authoritarian regime. The backlash was swift and intense, with protests erupting across the country and calls for his resignation growing louder. The attempt to impose martial law ultimately failed, but not before triggering a constitutional crisis and deepening the political divisions within the country. The fallout from this crisis has left the nation more polarized than ever, with deep-seated mistrust in the government.
The impeachment vote against President Yoon, while unsuccessful, further highlights the fragility of the current political climate. The narrow margin of the vote underscored the deep divisions within the political establishment and the electorate. The country remains deeply divided, with pro-Yoon factions facing off against those demanding his resignation. These divisions are not just political, but also social, affecting communities and families across the nation. This political instability comes at a precarious time for South Korea, as it navigates the choppy waters of the global economic crisis and the ever-present threat from North Korea. The economic repercussions are already being felt, with fluctuations in the stock market and concerns over foreign investment.
The leadership crisis in South Korea has implications that extend far beyond its borders. The uncertainty surrounding President Yoon's administration has raised alarms among international allies and economic partners. The country's strategic importance in the region, particularly its close alliance with the US, makes its internal stability a matter of international concern. Any significant disruption in South Korea could have ripple effects throughout the region and beyond. A weakened or unstable South Korea could embolden North Korea and further complicate the geopolitical dynamics in the region. The stakes are high, and the world is watching closely as South Korea navigates this turbulent period.